The twin suns cast long amber beams across the wild, untamed ridges of Eternia. In a clearing carved by wind and time, Fisto trained alone, his massive metal hand striking stone pillars with thunderous precision. Each blow echoed through the wilderness, a rhythm of discipline, strength, and restraint. He paused, sensing a shift in the air. A blur of steel flashed from the shadows. Jitzu emerged, his golden hand gleaming like a blade as it sliced toward Fisto. The attack was sudden, ruthless. Their clash was immediate. Iron met gold. Sparks flew. Roadhouse. The ground cracked beneath their feet as the two warriors exchanged blows, each testing the other's skill, each refusing to yield. Jitzu moved with cold precision, every strike calculated. Fisto answered with raw power, tempered by control. You've grown soft, Fisto. Jitzu sneered between strikes, guarding palaces instead of honing your edge. And you've grown reckless, Fisto replied, blocking a lethal strike. Serving chaos instead of honor. The ground beneath them trembled. A fissure split open without warning. Before either warrior could react, the earth gave way, and both plunged into darkness. They landed hard in a cavern deep beneath the surface. Dust filled the air. Silence followed. Fisto groaned, pushing himself upright. Jitzu was already on his feet, scanning the shadows. The cave walls were steep, jagged, impossible to climb alone. They were trapped. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Jitzu laughed quietly. How fitting! Two enemies buried together. Fisto crossed his arms. We can get out, but not by fighting against each other. Now we must work together. Jitsu's eyes narrowed. You suggest cooperation? I suggest survival. Reluctantly, Jitzu agreed. They began searching the cave, testing walls, moving stones. working in tense silence until the weight of the situation gave way to something deeper. Jitzu spoke first. "You heroes, eh?" he said, his voice echoing against the stone. "You claim to protect Eternia, but who do you truly serve, eh?" Fisto frowned. "We serve the people." "Do you, eh?" Jitzu snapped. "Or do you serve the throne, the royal family? You live in clean halls, eat rich food, and call it duty. Ha! Meanwhile, the peasants lose their harvests to storms, their livestock to plague. And where are you, eh?" Fisto said nothing. Jitzu stepped closer, his tone sharpening. "Since you now live only in luxury, you are blind to hunger, hardship, and struggle. You fight for laws that protect the powerful, not the common folk." The words struck harder than any blade. Fisto's jaw tightened. "And you?" he shot back. "You follow a tyrant who uses his warriors as tools, who sacrifices lives for his own twisted ambitions." Jitzu didn't flinch. "Skeletor gives purpose," he said. "He spreads lies," Fisto countered. "He sows hatred to divide people, to weaken them. There's no honor in that." The cave fell silent again. Two warriors, two truths, both incomplete. Hours passed. At last they found a narrow vertical shaft, too high for one, but possible for two. Without a word, they understood. Fisto braced himself against the rock, locking his stance. Jitzu stepped onto his shoulders, using his golden hand to grip the jagged walls. "Don't slip," Fisto muttered. "Don't falter," Jitzu replied. With effort, precision, and trust neither wanted to give, they climbed. Stone crumbled, muscles strained, but together they reached the top. Jitzu pulled himself out first, then turned back. For a brief moment he hesitated, before extending his hand. Fisto took it. "Come on!" He emerged into the light once more. They stood facing each other at the cave's edge. No more words," Jitzu said coldly. "Next time we finish this." "Next time," Fisto agreed. Jitzu vanished into the wilderness, his silhouette swallowed by shadow. But his words lingered. On the road back to the royal city, Fisto passed through farmland he had seen countless times before, but never truly noticed. Farmers bent over the soil, hands rough, faces tired, yet they worked with quiet determination. A man stood with his children as Fisto approached. "Look, children," the father said, pointing. "That's the brave Fisto, one of Eternia's heroes who protect us." The children waved eagerly. "Thank you, great hero Fisto!" Fisto slowed. then stopped. Something shifted inside him. He walked over to them. "Thank you," he said softly to the father, "for your hard work." The boy stepped forward, eyes shining. "One day I want to be a hero like He-Man, or like you." Fisto smiled, not with pride, but with humility. "You know," he said, kneeling slightly, "fighting evil now and then isn't the hardest thing." He looked at the father's worn hands, then back at the children. "But working in the fields every day, through storms, through loss, and still carrying on so others can eat, that is true heroism." The family fell silent. Fisto stood, then bowed deeply to them. A warrior honoring something greater than battle. As he walked away, the children looked at their father with new eyes, full of pride. And Fisto walked on, thoughtful, because even an enemy's words, he realized, can plant a seed. And with reflection, respect and gratitude, that seed can grow into something stronger than steel. Part 1. A Fracture Among Heroes. In the days that followed, the winds over Eternia carried more than dust. They carried doubt. Fisto returned to the royal court, but something in him had shifted. The grand halls felt louder than before, filled with praise, strategy, and certainty. Yet beneath it all, he heard something missing. Urgency, reality. During a council meeting, He-Man stood beside King Randor, outlining defenses against the next assault from Skeletor. Fisto stepped forward. "What of the southern provinces?" he asked. "The farmers there are still recovering from the storms. Their herds, many are gone." A murmur spread through the court. He-Man frowned slightly. "We have sent aid where we can, but Skeletor remains the greater threat." "To whom?" Fisto pressed. "To the throne? Or to the people who cannot even feed their children?" The room stiffened. King Randor's voice carried authority. "You question our priorities?" "I question our perspective," Fisto replied, steady but firm. "We protect walls while the foundation weakens." Mechanic scoffed, "We are warriors, not laborers." Fisto turned sharply. "And what is a warrior who protects only comfort?" He-Man stepped closer now, his tone measured but heavy. "You are letting one encounter cloud your judgment." Fisto met his gaze. No, it cleared it. Silence fell. For the first time, Fisto stood apart, not in strength, but in conviction. Part 2. A Conversation in the Wind. Later, beyond the city's edge, Fisto found Cyclone standing atop a ridge, his turban-like body humming softly in the wind. "You've been distant," Cyclone observed. "I've been thinking," Fisto answered. They stood side by side, looking out over fields where tiny figures worked from dawn to dusk. "Tell me," Fisto began, "what is heroism?" Cyclone tilted his head. "To defend the innocent, to stand against evil." "And is that enough?" A pause. Fisto continued, his voice quieter now. "Many of us, we fight battles that are seen, celebrated, sung about. But what of the battles no one sees? Hunger, loss, survival." Cyclone's voice softened. "You believe we've grown detached?" "I believe," Fisto said, "that some of us have grown proud, that fame has become louder than purpose, that we mistake recognition for righteousness." The wind picked up. "The strong," Fisto went on, "must help the weak, not because it earns glory, but because it is right. Whether they are kings or farmers makes no difference." Cyclone absorbed this. "Then perhaps," he said slowly, "true heroism is not measured by victory, but by who we choose to stand beside when no one is watching." Fisto nodded. For the first time since the cave, his thoughts felt shared. Part 3. Discord in Darkness. Far from the light of the royal court, within the jagged shadows of Snake Mountain, Jitzu knelt before Skeletor. "You hesitated," Skeletor hissed. "You spared an enemy." "We survived," Jitzu replied calmly. "You cooperated," Skeletor snapped, "with weakness." Jitsu's eyes hardened, but he said nothing. "Remember your place," Skeletor continued. "You are a weapon, nothing more." The words echoed long after Skeletor turned away. Part 4. The Way of the Blade. That night, in a secluded chamber, Jitzu found Ninyo standing in stillness, like a shadow-given form. "You seek clarity," Ninyo said without turning. Jitzu stepped forward. "I seek truth." Ninyo faced him. "Then speak." Jitsu's voice carried less anger now, more weight. "What is honor?" he asked, "if it binds us to a master who sees us as expendable?" Ninyo's eyes narrowed slightly. "Honor is not obedience." Jitzu continued. "What is loyalty if it demands silence in the face of injustice?" "Loyalty without conscience," Ninyo replied, "is servitude." Jitzu clenched his fist. "And courage? Is it to obey without question, or to question even when it costs you everything?" Now Ninyo stepped closer. "True courage," he said, is to stand alone when necessary, to act not for reward nor fear, but because your spirit demands it. Silence settled between them. And self-sacrifice? Jitsu asked. Nino's voice grew quieter. It is not dying for a cause blindly, but choosing what is worth giving your life to. Jitsu looked down at his golden hand. For the first time, he admitted, I'm uncertain. Nino gave a slight nod. Then for the first time, you are thinking like a true warrior, not a weapon. Part 5. 2 paths, 1 change. Days turned into weeks. Fisto began spending time beyond the palace, helping rebuild fences, carrying supplies, listening to voices long unheard. Some heroes watched with confusion, others with quiet discomfort. Heman approached him once more. You are changing things, he said. I'm trying to understand them, Fisto replied. And if it weakens us? Fisto shook his head. Then we were never as strong as we believed. Meanwhile, Jitsu grew distant from Skeletor's command. His strikes in battle became precise, but restrained. His obedience selective. Other warriors whispered. Doubt had entered Snake Mountain. Part 6. Echoes of the Cave. Though they walked different paths, both warriors carried the same truth, that strength without reflection is dangerous, that loyalty without question is fragile, and that even an enemy can reveal what allies cannot. Far apart, under different skies, Fisto and Jitsu had not become allies, but they had become something far more dangerous to the world as it was. They had begun to think. And in Eternia, that was the beginning of change. The final meeting. The sky over Eternia burned crimson, as if the world itself felt the tension that had been building for weeks. In a desolate valley between jagged cliffs, 2 figures approached from opposite sides. Fisto walked with steady resolve, his metal fist clenched. not in anger, but in certainty hard-earned. From the shadows came Jitzu, silent as a blade. They stopped a few paces apart. "No cave this time," Jitzu said. "No accidents," Fisto replied. "Only choice." And then they moved. 1. The clash of convictions. Their battle was fiercer than before. Fisto's strikes thundered like falling stone. Jitsu's movements cut like wind through steel. They circled, collided, broke apart, each blow carrying not just force, but belief. "You still defend them!" Jitzu shouted, deflecting a crushing strike. "A system that hides suffering behind banners and crowns! And you still serve destruction," Fisto countered, driving him back. "A master who feeds on division and fear!" Jitsu's golden hand lashed out, grazing Fisto's shoulder. "Better harsh truth than comforting lies!" Fisto staggered, then steadied himself. "Truth without compassion becomes cruelty." Roadhouse. They clashed again, harder. But something had changed. Between strikes there were pauses, not of weakness, but of thought. 2. Words between blades. They broke apart, breathing heavily. "Tell me, Fisto," Jitzu said, circling slowly. "What is good? What is evil? Are they truly as clear as you once believed, huh?" Fisto lowered his stance slightly. "I believe they exist," he said, "but I no longer believe we always see them clearly." Jitzu nodded faintly. "Appearances and reality," he said. "The heroes appear noble, the villains appear cruel, but reality," he gestured around them, "is far more complicated, huh?" Fisto stepped forward. "You're right. We fail, we overlook, we grow blind." Jitsu's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in focus. "And we destroy, we obey, we justify." They stood still now, two warriors, no longer just fighting, but confronting. "Honor," Jitzu continued, "is not loyalty to a banner. It is loyalty to truth, even when it betrays your allies. Fisto shook his head slightly. Honor also means standing for others, protecting, even when it costs you comfort, pride, or certainty. Jitsu's voice lowered. And what if those you protect are also part of the problem? Fisto didn't answer immediately. Then, he said at last, we change what we can. And we listen when we are wrong. A faint, almost imperceptible smile crossed Jitsu's face. 3. The stalemate. They charged one final time. The impact echoed across the valley. Iron fist met golden edge of hand. Force met precision. Neither yielded. At last both stepped back, exhausted, equal, a stalemate. Silence followed. Jitsu lowered his arm first. We are still enemies, he said. Yes, Fisto agreed, but not blind ones. Fisto nodded. Jitsu turned away, then paused. Every truth has two sides, he said quietly, and perhaps more than two. Fisto watched him go. And none are set in stone, he replied. For the first time they parted not as victors or losers, but as warriors who understood each other. "4. The Battles Within." Back at the edge of the royal city, beneath a quiet evening sky, Fisto stood with He-Man and Cyclone. He-Man studied him carefully. "You've changed." Fisto exhaled slowly. "I've learned." Cyclone tilted his head. "What have you found?" Fisto looked out over the distant fields. "That heroism isn't what we thought it was." He turned back to them. "Battles are not fought only on the battlefield. Every person fights their battles every day, within themselves." He-Man listened closely. Doubt, fear, loss, failure, the struggle to keep going when no one sees it. Fisto's voice softened. "These battles shape people more than any war." Cyclone nodded quietly. "And we overlook them," Fisto continued, "because they aren't visible, because they don't bring glory." He-Man lowered his gaze slightly. "Appearance and reality," Fisto said. "We see strength, but not the cost. We see victory, but not the struggle behind it. A long pause. Then He-Man spoke. "Thank you," he said sincerely, "for reminding us to look closer, to listen more, to care about the small things." He placed a hand on Fisto's shoulder. "That's where problems begin," he added, "and where they must be understood." Fisto gave a small, grateful nod. "5. The Way Forward." Deep within the shadows of Snake Mountain, Jitzu stood once more before Ninyo. "I am leaving," Jitzu said. Ninyo did not seem surprised. "You have found your path." Jitzu nodded. "Loyalty without thought is weakness," he said. "Honor without truth is illusion. A warrior must think, question, and speak, even when it is dangerous." Ninyo's eyes reflected quiet approval. "And combat?" he asked. Jitzu considered this. "Combat is not just destruction. It is understanding. It reveals who we really are, and who we choose to be." He paused. "The path of a warrior is perseverance, discipline, clarity, respect, passion, and honesty with oneself above all." Ninyo inclined his head slightly. "You have learned much." Jitzu bowed, not as a subordinate, but as an equal. "Thank you." Without another word, he turned and disappeared into the shadows, no longer merely a weapon, but a man walking his own path. "6. Stillness." Alone Ninyo remained. After a while he prepared a simple cup of tea. He sat and meditated. He breathed deeply and calm. He reflected. Jitsu's words lingered, not as echoes, but as seeds. After some time, a faint smile appeared on his face, because even in a world of endless conflict, understanding had taken root. And that, perhaps, was the beginning of something greater than a victory over an enemy.